Hey everybody, this is Perch, and this is one of those ones where it's an obvious unforced error that Marvel made with this character that I think unnecessarily. I don't want to say split the fandom because that's not exactly right, but they created a controversy where there didn't need to be one. There was no necessity for one. It wasn't relevant. It wasn't important. It didn't add or benefit anything. And I'm talking about Laura Kinney, who, if you're saying who right now, she's the daughter of Sarah, daughter of Logan, sort of. She is a clone, basically. And she is was an attempt to recreate the original Weapon X experiment that made Wolverine. Project's director, Dr. Martin Suter, recruited renowned mutant geneticist Dr. Sarah Kinney, created a clone. So they took genetic material from Logan, which was damaged. They were able to salvage the Y chromosome after 22 attempts, and they made the 23rd attempt, which was Laura, and was dubbed her as X-23. So there you go. There's some little history in there. She here's where it gets weird. So the character debuted in a little kind of blink and you miss it title called NYX #3 back in December. And there's a lot about NYX that I think that Marvel would love for you to just forget that it existed, including what old Laura was up to in that series. So that's probably anyway. They want to kind of skin on over that part of her history, but showed up in X-Men. Kind of got kicked around for a little bit there, and then in 2015, Marvel killed off Logan Wolverine. And so they dubbed Laura as the all-new Wolverine, and they gave her a somewhat awkward costume that was vaguely reminiscent of Wolverine's, with the Wolverine ear point, kind of head mask, whatever you want to call it. And so they said this is the new Wolverine now. And as you can imagine, it had a pretty small handful. I mean, here's the thing again: if you're on Tumblr or Twitter, then you would be under the impression that everyone was in favor of this move, but they weren't. Most people either ignored it, say, no, Wolverine's a character we've known for the last 40 years. This is not Wolverine. Or they kind of seemed confused. I would say that Laura as a character was generally liked. If you go back previous to 2015, many people liked that character. It showed up in Avengers Academy, showed up in Avengers Arena. Just the character, it was not breakout super popular, but had a fan base, had a following. People were generally pleased that the character existed, and there weren't really any issues with Laura. The name X-23 was always kind of a goofy ass name. And I think it doesn't roll off the tongue. It doesn't, I mean, it's like, here comes X-23. It's just a weird name. Why would she be running around with a code name of her clone experiment self? It just, they tried to make that make sense on one level, but it really didn't. But through the appearances in X-Force and other places, the character was, I would say, popular, reasonably popular. And then in a confusing move that is they renamed her. As confusing as giving Wolverine hot claws, which many of you are like, what is he talking about? Yes, at one point when Wolverine was brought back to life, and I'm talking about the Logan Wolverine now, they gave him a mutated power of heated claws, which then Marvel kind of immediately seemed to ignore. I remember Hickman said we would even be referencing the hot claws in Dawn of X. I do not believe they did, unless I completely missed that. But anyway. So basically, what's happened now in the last few years since Logan was returned to life is they've been doing this thing in the comics where it's like, she's the Wolverine. No, I'm the Wolverine. No, she's the real Wolverine. Who's the real Wolverine? And then very awkward dialogue from Laura where she's like, I'm Wolverine. That's my name now. And it comes across as very bizarre for the character. It doesn't fit Laura's personality. It feels like it's talking to some invisible audience in Twitter land who's upset that there's a girl superhero. That's really how it comes across when they portray it. And when I say it's an unforced error, it's really a case of, okay, we peel it all back. Does Laura benefit from using Wolverine's name? By all accounts, no. Wolverine is a popular enough character that people know that, I mean, there was movies out with this character, including a movie out that featured Laura in it, for that matter. But there was plenty of Wolverine films worldwide, globally. People knew Wolverine. They knew who Wolverine was. He had a very distinctive look, and it's Logan. Just handing off the name and saying, now it's something different now, get with the times. It's insulting, it's stupid, and it doesn't stick. Nobody went along with it. So it just created this fight where there didn't need to be one. And it was unclear even who was fighting this fight. Most people just hung out and waited for Logan to be resurrected and brought back to life, which everyone knew he would be before too long. And a couple years later, they did, bring him back. In fact, they brought him back immediately by just bringing a future alternate version self of Wolverine, having old man Wolverine running around. That was somewhat of an attempt to maybe transition the name to Logan. I have no idea what was going on in editorial's head at that time. But regardless, giving Laura the name of Wolverine almost seemed to just grind her progression as a character to a halt. Now suddenly it was all wrapped up in trying to mimic Logan. She took up the Wolverine mantle, but it was kind of unclear. I mean, yes, she was a clone of him, but I mean, there weren't like decades of comics of her getting mentored by Logan or anything like that. Logan was protective of her, but you could argue that if Logan was going to die, that Kitty Pryde would be more likely to take the costume and the name because she actually had a history for decades of being mentored by that character. Laura really didn't have it. The reason why they did it is like, look, she's got claws. And she's a girl now, so just put her in the costume. But the costume looked weird. If you look at kind of her previous costumes that they had throughout kind of her series, there were a lot of really cool costumes designed by Stuart Immonen and all kinds of people for that matter. She just had some pretty cool outfits. The character again seemed to go backwards into this knockoff version when they decided to brand her Wolverine, which nobody wanted or needed. So now here we are in current time. They've put her on the Gary Duggan X-Men team. And once again, it's like she's trapped. They've got to constantly acknowledge or reference well, I've got the name too. I'm a real Wolverine. I'm the Wolverine, unlike the Wolverine that actually has a solo title comic named Wolverine. Why would you do this? There's plenty of names. Even if they had called her Slashy, it would have been better and stuck with people more than just trying to duplicate Wolverine. It didn't make any sense. This is doing damage to the character for reasons that are completely baffling. You could say, well, this is Marvel trying to do diversity, sort of, but I mean, okay, it's a female clone of Wolverine. What are we even doing at this point? It doesn't matter. It just feels like somebody on editorial or writing side being churlish at this point. You're not going to undo 50 years of brand establishment that they had with Logan, nor should you. It's not about taking a old character and putting the mantle on a legacy character. By doing that, you actually hurt the legacy's character. You made the legacy character less unique. That's the key, problem that happened here. That's the damage that was done. You took someone who actually had a following, was getting popular, could stand on their own, and you made Laura less, not more. By adopting the new name, you basically said you weren't good enough to stand on your own. You weren't good enough to have your own identity. So we're just going to kind of have you be a knockoff of another one. And then we're going to bitch at anybody who complains about the name as being, sexist for bizarre reasons, simply because they remember something that the parent company of this comics group is gleefully like cranking out movies about. It's weird. We see the same thing with Hawkeye, where you've got the mantle of Hawkeye. Now, at least there, they've done a better job of trying to reference Kate more in her name. But anytime you're doing this, let's just hand the name off to someone else. You have to ask yourself: was there a good story reason behind this? Is it beneficial to do this, or are you actually doing harm to the new character? That's the thing that people need to think and realize. They're not helping the new character any by doing this. So all kind of weird. I've seen some people ask about this with Wolverine and why do we need two Wolverines? You don't, and that question actually is the problem. It's you could have named Laura anything. I do agree moving off the name X-23 was a good plan because that was a stupid name, but there's so many great names out there you could use for this character, or even mediocre names that would have allowed her to stand on her own feet, have her own identity, grow her own popularity and fan base, rather than forever linking it and tying it. And quite frankly, the costume often looks ridiculous. I mean, like Pepe Larraz is a beast, and he does amazing work, and he's managed to make that costume look pretty good. But even there, you look at kind of how she was drawn and rendered by a number of different artists over the last 15 years. She had some great, very different looks, great looks that they did with this character. And pigeonholing her with a cheap version of Wolverine with the colors and the mask and everything. I don't know. You're not doing her any favors. So I guess my point here is that it's not. This isn't like a. If the people who are making these decisions think that they're like owning the angry comic fans, you're not owning anyone. You're actually hurting your own efforts. You are shooting the gun in your own foot. It's you who is taking a character that was on a trajectory to get over as a more major property, and instead made her a copy. Because now, if you're going out to the normies or whoever, the people who aren't reading comics carefully, and you're putting this character out, the very first question everybody's going to ask is, when did Wolverine become a girl? Is that really the best question you want for yourself? It's silly. Anyway, that's my theory on it anyway. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.